whole point of LinkedIn is to network with people, right? You use your networking abilities to find jobs and opportunities. So it sounds pretty straightforward, yet so many people feel incredibly overwhelmed when it comes to LinkedIn. And we have to think, why is that? And networking is not so straightforward, actually. There's a lot to it. It's not so much one way. A lot of people kind of treat things as a one way relationship when trying to create connections. So I'm going to explain to you some ways on how you can get better with networking to approach different people, whether you're trying to find your first data job or further along in your career. I'll go over some things that are good when it comes to networking, because of course there are some things that are really good to do and some things that are not so good to do. And the first one up is treating every connection like you'd be meeting them in real life. I know it's tough sometimes around LinkedIn, especially when you're using something on your phone or computer. It's not as natural as being in person. So you have to understand that everything we're doing, we have to think, would I do this in real life? Would I message this person who I've never spoken to a message saying something like, get me a job, please? That's probably not what you want to do, right? Imagine sitting down at a restaurant, someone comes up to you and asks you that question. You're gonna think that's a little bit weird, right? So just continue to think that you're trying to treat every single connection you make on the platform like you would handle it in real life. And next part up is think before you ask. And what I mean by that is, I know it's tough. We might be looking for a job, might have been looking for a while, or we want to get out of the current situation. So we want to always ask for help. We want help as much as possible, but we have to think before we ask anything. What would that person also do? And you have to think that as well, because if you're going to approach someone who you've never spoken to or don't really know at all, and asking from a huge favor, like, hey, do you have a referral or is there any openings in your company? That's a really big ask. And that's not something that normally people would do. So I want you to think before you do or ask anything on the platform, because networking at the end of the day is a long term run. It's not something you could just create in one day. You can't message someone out of the blue and expect to create a strong connection right away. It takes a long time. And like I said, think before you ask. Next one up is create a well rounded circle of connections. What I mean by that is you don't want to limit yourself to just a little bit of, let's say, a part of the network. So I'll go a couple examples. If you are an entry level applicant, you want to surround yourself with people who are also entry level, because you want to have a somewhat of a support system. You want to have people who are going through the journey with you. So you have people to work with, maybe practice interviews with, and have that strong connection. You also want to follow or try to connect with people who are data creators. Now you want to be careful, because certain creators can have a certain type of content that might cater to certain audiences. So make sure if you're trying to get into the field, you're looking for people who are already in the field who are making content around that source. Because, for example, if you try to follow someone who is very along in their career and they do content for more senior or above people, you might tend to get overwhelmed and start overthinking a lot of things. And then lastly, besides that, just people within your field who have been in it for, I'd say, about 2 or 3 years. Because if you try to find someone who's currently a senior analyst or a mid analyst, they've been doing it for 2 to 3 years and they might be able to have a much better conversation with you. So having those three fields of people are very, very important to make sure you're not just putting all of those into one bucket. You have well-rounded people who are trying to get into the field with you. You also have data creators, and you have data professionals who have been in the field for about 2 to 3 years, so they're a little bit more relatable. Next up is, like I said a little bit earlier, is think long term more than short term. Just like in real life, if you make friends with anyone or get to know anybody, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time. So the first time you talk to someone, you might think at the end of the day, okay, I want to get a job. I get messages all the time. I think that 90% of them, I know it's going to happen. And that's okay. Like, I have no problem people reaching out who maybe see a job and are interested in. And I do referrals. If I look at their background and I think they're a good fit, I'll do it. My job gives me a good paycheck to refer people. So I have no problem doing that. However, it's how they approach it. If you come in right away thinking, okay, I want to create a connection with you, extend me a connection request. Oh, I love following your stuff. And then boom, hit me with a message saying, hey, can you get me a job? No. Like, no, why would I do that? Like, I have already enough people trying to reach out to me. Why should I do that? So you have to think networking is unfortunately not something you could just expect right away. So that's why you got to think ahead of time. If you know you're looking for a job and you know it's going to happen, let's say you're at a current company and you want to move, this is definitely more helpful for people already in the field. If you're in a job that's not what you want and you know you want to get out, start networking right away. because it's going to take time to get to that point where someone might feel comfortable enough to give you a referral or whatnot. And always think positive or negative. I know it can be very hard when you're out there on social media, especially on something like LinkedIn. There's a lot of negativity, right? Talk about how the job market's really bad, data is getting worse, and stuff like that. Of course, the market's not good currently in the beginning of 2025, but people are still landing jobs every day. So you have to think, surround yourself with the people on this platform who are being more positive, but also not in a false positive or toxic positive way. People who are being realistic, but positive and motivating to make sure you are also staying along that same path. Now let's get to the good stuff, because there are definitely some things I've been seeing on LinkedIn, that stuff that I've done in the past. I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning, and also some people still do it that I think that are not helping their cases in any way. And the first thing that people think is that they expect things to come easy. They expect, based on, I think, especially when it comes to data, is more for people trying to get into the industry. They might see a couple videos online and they think, okay, I have to learn some skills, then apply for a job and go get it. They expect that when they message someone, that they expect a response with exactly what they want. Well, I'm going to give a little bit of insight, and I'm just one person. There's many other people out there who probably get way more than me, but approximately a day, it's around 30, 35 messages I get. If I want to go through each one and look at their resume and see if they're a good fit, that would take forever. And two, I don't have much control over situations in my own company of like the jobs that are out there. If I was a hiring manager, that's one thing. I'm not a hiring manager. I'm a senior analyst, so I don't really have that much pull when it comes to certain job openings. Yes, I can refer them, but I referred people and people got rejected right away. So referrals don't really mean like, oh, if I give you a referral, everything's gonna change. Well, no, I'm just a senior analyst. I'm not a hiring manager. So you have to understand that we're going into it, people also are on LinkedIn every single day. Recruiters don't spend time on LinkedIn every single day. So you have to be realistic and understand that your message, you have to think there comes a lot of outside aspects on, when are they available to look at it? How many messages do they get a day? So having realistic expectations going into how you network is very important. Next one up is asking more than giving. Just think about, if you go through each person you try to make a connection with, how many times are you asking more than thinking about helping or giving? I'm not asking you to go and say, oh, like, I'll support your content for this and this if you help me get a resume review or something like that. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but just think logically. If you know you're about to start a conversation with someone, why would they want to help you if they don't know you or have never really worked with you? If you show that you are willing to help or give a positive compliment or just show something that you care, that's going to matter way more. So really think about that a lot when you're going through. Be like, how many of my connections or messages am I asking more than giving? And if you are doing more of the asking part, you might want to rethink on and kind of think, okay, how can I get people to engage with me instead of right away asking for something? Next up, copy and pasting slash AI messages and comments. I mean, that should be more obvious. Um, Using those AI messages or really just copy and pasting the same message over and over again gets very, very obvious. Lots of times people will say my name wrong, or they'll be clearly ChatGPT or something that wrote the message for them based off the emojis. Or there's a lot of things like certain colons that are used out there that's very obvious that an AI system used to write it. So really take the time to craft the proper message, because every person's different, right? I know for me, when people reach out to me, I'm from New Jersey. I also like music like Blink 182, and I've talked about it before in the past on my LinkedIn. I know for a fact if someone said something in the message that got my attention, I'd be more inclined to answer them. Doesn't mean that I will 100%, right? But if they said something like that, that means they took the time to actually look at my profile. I'm not asking someone to go through 40, 45 minutes of my profile to find something. Just take a glance, see something that you think could get my attention to give me an excuse to answer your message. So really try to use yourself, your own brain to write these messages without relying too much on copy and pasting or AI. Think before react, like I said before, just continue to think before anything else. And then finally, don't force a connection, let it come naturally. And I know that's a hard part. I know, like when you see someone who maybe is hiring for a role or is, making posts on LinkedIn, you want to create this connection and get it done quickly, but you got to let it happen naturally. You cannot force things. You cannot force a conversation if the person, especially around online, we all are busy. I work 9 to 5 and then do data friendship from 5 to 11 o'clock at night. Like I don't have much time to respond to people. So I could get back when I get back. If you're in real life and talking to someone, then yeah, it happens a little bit quicker. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. So we're on LinkedIn. We have to think any single time we're trying to create a connection, we have to let it come naturally and not try to force anything that comes on. Kind of staying on the other topics that came to networking, we're going to talk about cold messaging. And the reason I'm saying more of cold messaging in that sense means you have never spoken to this person at all. You're sending a message to a recruiter or a hiring manager for the first time and you've had no connection with the person at all. This is very hard. It's very, very hard. I think a lot of it comes down to just writing and also some external factors like availability of the person actually reading it. A lot of times, like I said on the previous one, recruiters and hiring managers aren't on LinkedIn all day. So make sure they see your message at the right time is one thing, but also make sure you have the right message is also very important too. And my first point is less is better. You do not have to write a 5 paragraph persuasive essay in some kind of format to get their attention. Less is better because if they're scrolling through, they're getting tons of other messages too. Think about how many messages recruiters get every day. It's got to be something insane. I remember talking to someone that she said she gets around 50 or 55 a day. So less is better, right to the point. Things that you can put in there right away is, let's say, I would always recommend if you're doing something based, a very common one is when you apply for a job. I always recommend you apply first and then message someone, because if you do the other, if you message and say, hey, I saw a job opening, they're going to say, did you apply? And if you said no, like they can't do anything about it. So apply first. And then within the message, you say something like, hey, I just applied for a job, the job ID, put it right next to it, and then go in depth really quick for like 2-3 sentences to describe yourself and then end it off nice and clean. Short, sweet, to the point, get their attention, move on. Next one up is make a personal connection to the reader. And a very good part in there is, for example, I saw someone who the recruiter went to Duke University. I am a huge Duke University Blue Devils basketball fan. So within that message, there's about 3 or 4 sentences. And at the very end, I said, P.S. Go Blue Devils. And the person responded within like an hour or two. And they didn't go anywhere far within this interview process, but it got me to interview. So trying to make sure that you look through the profile and think, okay, how can I connect with this person? And I know some things like colleges where people go to school is very, very popular. Most people like to really talk about where they went or think about like a location that they're from. Like, I'm from New Jersey. If I see someone else from New Jersey, I'm going to say something. So that's a very important part right there as well. Try to make a connection with them so they actually could respond to you. Make sure to use the company name and person's first name. And like I said, you'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised if people just say, hi, my name is blah, 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 and that's it. Connect with the person. How would you talk to them in real life? Would you just walk up and say hi? No. If you knew their name, you would say their name. Make sure you say their name and the company to make sure it's not just looking like a bunch of copy and paste BS. Okay, let's just be very honest. We want to make sure that each message is trying to personally connect with them. So use their name and the company that you are applying for. And also your LinkedIn profile makes a big difference. Make sure that's fully filled out. We went over that in the previous video, so make sure that your profile is all good to go to make sure the person actually feels interested and wants to actually respond to you. Right here is a cold messaging example, and this one is a little bit different because this is a role I applied for, but for some reason my resume wasn't working. So within this, I explained that I came across a post that they shared about the data analyst role, and I'm very interested in the opportunity. I went into just saying how the resume did not accept it. It might be a little hard to see, but basically on the bottom where it says, I saw you went to Creighton University, huge college basketball fan, go Blue Jays. Like I said, it's a very similar example where it said about the Duke University thing. Saw the person went to university. I know that school is a very big basketball school. She responded within an hour saying, oh, I'll help you with your resume. No problem. Then she's like, oh, yeah, they're doing great this year. And it turned into this basketball conversation. So I think that within that, I'm thinking, okay, this person's trying to get my attention. And also think, I understand having, my LinkedIn following is a little bit over 80,000. It's a little bit, I would say, easier to get a response based on my background. But I was doing these same exact things 2+ years ago when I had no one following me and I was just a teacher trying to get into the field. So every time I'm trying to put through a message, I'm trying to make sure I put everything in there that I need. And this one's a little bit longer because I had to explain the situation, what was going on with my resume. but I always end it off with something personal. I want to make sure that they know that I'm looking at their profile. I want to make sure they know I'm putting in that effort to make sure that they can actually respond to me and move along in this process. Commenting is a significantly underrated part to LinkedIn because it gives people the space to engage with people without making any sort of content or anything like that. And we got to think when you're going through a post and you see something very interesting and you try and get your name out there a little bit more, there's no better way than commenting because, like I said, you might be making content if you have maybe 100, 200 connections, which that's a good thing to be proud of. You can make content and maybe only get a handful of people actually seeing it, and you might feel a little bit defeated. But realistically, think about commenting. If you could go on to, for example, someone like me who has around 80,000 people following them, and if you comment on it, you're going to get your face out there in front of a ton of people. So making sure that you take a list of people, some different data creators are a good start, and actually start commenting on them and not just, wasting your time throwing, just, hey, good post or great job. Like, no, it means nothing. It's whatever. I'll just say thanks and move on. You want to make sure you actually take your time. And I'm going to explain these bullets on how to actually leave a great comment under these posts. The first one is probably the most important one is encourage engagement by asking for clarification or expansion. So, like I said, the whole point is you're trying to get the person writing to respond to you or someone else in the comment section to respond. So, when you're encouraging this engagement, you also bring attention to your comment. The goal within LinkedIn is how they do the relevancy of comments is based off how many people engage with yours or like it. So, the more you get, higher up it goes. If you comment on a post and it goes viral, your name is right there. Underneath the author, if they go to comments, you're right there. So making sure you try to encourage engagement with your comment, leaving off with something like a question or something like that, will encourage the writer or someone else in the comment section to respond to you. Next up is starting by expressing appreciation or agreement. I know this scene could also be straightforward, but you also want to avoid engaging posts that almost are negative or you completely disagree with because that's just not going to help. We do not want to use this platform as something like a Facebook or something like that. That's not going to help. We want to make sure we are trying to present ourselves in the best way possible. So start by expressing appreciation or agreement because you try and create this connection. You're trying to show appreciation. Like I said, it kind of goes into the other thing of thinking like, okay, think before react, or also we are trying to give more than ask. So because of that, we are giving appreciation and we might not get it back. We might not get exactly what we're trying to get back here, but eventually it will. It's never going to be even. You're always going to give more than you get. That's almost how life is in a way, right? So let's really think about this. We want to express appreciation or agreement in all of our comments. That would, make sense. We also want to briefly summarize what resonated with you. I think what's also good is to express why you like the post. Why did it feel like you connected to it? If it's a post about networking or a post about resumes, explain why you resonate with it. Doesn't mean you have to write 3 paragraphs, but just a good 2, 3 sentences going in depth could really show you are actually, paying attention to the post and that you're actually putting effort into that comment. And lastly, if relevant, you can tag someone who might find it valuable because you're bringing people into that post. So you're helping the person who's making the post. So at the end of the day, they're like, oh, wow, this person really likes my work and they're bringing people to it. You're getting their attention. So think about that. If you eventually want to get someone's attention or reach out to them, this definitely helps a ton. I know people have been commenting on posts for some time and they'll reach out and be like, hey, um, I'm not sure, but do you have any open roles? But because they've been commenting on my stuff for so long, I know who they are and I have no problem looking for them. So make sure you also bring people into the post because at the end of the day, more people, the better. So right here is an example of a comment I left almost like the other day. You can see right here with the amount of reactions based off my comment, it was the top one. This is a very popular post a person wrote, had over like 1,000 engagements on it. Pretty popular. I was pretty much the top one on there. They were really the whole point of the article was talk about why having a master's for data analytics is very important. And I went in to put my perspective. I liked the post a lot, but I said something that I felt was more my opinion. And I said it is helpful, and I agree with that. But I wouldn't recommend people spend something like 2+ years trying to do it and then look for a job. I said though it's extremely great that it's part of trying to land entry level roles and having an employer help pay for it is even better. So right there, a lot of people read that and like, you know what? I like that point of view. it resonated well with me because I really believe having a master's is very helpful. But I also think that doing it appropriately is more helpful for people who are getting into the career, so not wasting too much time. So that's an example of taking my time to write that. Instead of just saying great post or nice job, I actually wrote my perspective, which adds some more conversation. You see, there's two replies underneath. People responded to it. They're trying to have a conversation. This helps everyone involved. I know we talked about a lot. We talked about a lot on this one. There's so much that goes into networking as it is. We talked things like commenting, other just normal topics like what to do, what not to do with networking. And I really hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you over on the next one.